Welcome to the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts. After learning a ton about kidney stones and helping people prevent stones at the University of Chicago, I was fed up with all the terrible advice people were finding online. So I decided to do something about it. The Kidney Dietitian was born. This podcast is for people who want to learn what actually works to prevent kidney stones and still enjoy life, eating, and their favorite foods. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 97th episode of the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts, and I am thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Emily Campbell, to the podcast today. Emily is a fellow kidney dietitian, and we're going to be talking about something that sounds really simple, but really I think is a lot more complex than people realize, which is eating more fruits and vegetables. So welcome, Emily, to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Melanie.
Yeah. So before we dive into vegetables, which sounds like the most dietitian-y topic of all time, right? Like how to eat more vegetables.
Always. I
But
feel like that's like the thing you're like, okay, I know I'm a dietitian. I'm going to tell you to eat vegetables and fruit, but there's a reason.
right, there's a reason. It's literally like perhaps the most important thing you can do for your health, and people are not doing it. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But before we dive into that, can you share a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you live, and all those types of things?
Yeah. So I'm a dietitian here in Canada, and I support individuals with chronic kidney disease, polycystic kidney disease, kidney stones. My team and I are located in Ontario, and we have a few group courses in individual services, and really just bringing light. We can do things for kidney health, and there are dietitians out there to support you.
Right. That is like the message of everything that I do. Like you can do something for both. I feel like for both kidney disease and kidney stones, the message is so often like, well, sorry, like take this medicine, maybe eat less salt and see you later. Right. But there's so much more you can do for both situations.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So why do you love working with kidney patients so much? Like kind of why it's so interesting to ask all the dietitians that I've had on the podcast, like what made you come here? Why kidneys?
It's such a weird story. I remember doing my internship, having to get all those competencies, checking them
Hmm.
all off. I had met my competencies, but I had one last placement and it was nephrology. And I remember prepping and being like, "Ooh, I don't know. I can't do this. Way too complicated." And I just fell in love with it. It is complicated, but that's the best part about it because you think about the kidneys and they're not just the kidneys. They're also impacting our bones, our iron, our like our risk of diabetes. Like all of
Hmm.
these things kind of go hand in hand with kidney patients. And as a dietitian, there's so much we can do for our health perspective and be proactive with our health, but also from a preservation and management standpoint. That really complex area, I just fell in love with because I think it's something that as a dietitian, we play a big role in helping people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I feel like very few people fall in love with it in the internship or like during school. Usually,
For
like
sure.
I definitely didn't. I kind of fell into it and here I am. And most people I feel like work in dialysis and want to help people with CKD. So I love that you like right from the get-go were like, yes, this is where I want to be.
I'm sure it was the like metabolic bone disease project that I was like, whoa, this is so complicated. Phosphorus and calcium, and I
Yeah.
think it's something that we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so great. Okay. So you just love working with kidneys because you enjoy the challenge, which is definitely something I've heard from other people too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And you can help people. Like we said before, like there are things that you can do and giving people hope is perhaps the best thing that we can do.
Definitely. That
Yeah.
confidence that they can manage their health.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving into our topic of fruits and vegetables, which as we said is perhaps like could not be a more dietitian-y title. But when we think about kidneys specifically, why are fruits and vegetables so important?
Well, they provide us with so many great nutrients, right? We think about fiber, all those vitamins that we get from them. But from a kidney perspective, they help us to manage internally a bit more. So they help to manage things like our metabolic acidosis if we have chronic kidney disease. And from a kidney stone perspective, they give us the good nutrients that we want in our urine to prevent stones from forming. And so some of those are things like potassium and citrate. And then they help to manage that pH of our urine.
Yeah, absolutely. So many things. And I think people don't realize, I do a lot of talking about, things that are good in your urine, like potassium, magnesium, citrate, whatever. And people always think like, oh, well, cool, I'll take a magnesium pill. Or like, oh, cool, like I'll take a citrate pill. And although there is certainly a time and a place for supplements, I think people often don't realize like that food is going to be better hands down in literally every situation, right?
We think about the sustainability aspect of it too,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the cost of food is going up, but the cost of supplements is just something additional. And, time and place for sure. But if food is something that's going to be there in the long run, why not focus on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I don't know about Canada, but in the United States, supplements are not regulated. So people can put anything they want in them or not put whatever they want in them. They can say that they're going to help whatever they want to say that they're going to help with. Really, I feel like people get in trouble a lot, especially from a kidney stone standpoint with supplements. What is the
Mhm.
regulatory state in Canada? Just interested.
So yeah, very similar experience here. Things can have a product identification number on them, but not everything does.
Okay.
So if you are purchasing products in Canada, looking for that inspection number is important.
Oh, okay.
The claims are a little bit tighter in terms of like what they
That's good.
can and can't advertise, but still, there's a lot of like not thoroughly researched claims, right? That
Hmm.
we might read online and pick up a similar product here. And that could even put us at risk of forming kidney stones, depending on what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I like to think about why it's so important to actually eat your fruits and vegetables and not take, maybe a powdered supplement that it says that it is 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, is that there's really this synergistic effect, right? Like yeah, sure, we've identified that magnesium, for example, may be one of the reasons why we see benefit in XYZ, but likely there's like a zillion things about why we see better health outcomes in people who eat fruits and vegetables, no matter what you're talking about. And it's just quite frankly impossible to replicate that in a pill.
Oh, for sure. You think about like, when we have artificial sweeteners, similarly, right? How our health behaviors change when we
Mhm.
introduce those into our diet. The same thing is, when we focus on having those fruits and vegetables, we often subconsciously make healthier choices in other areas of our life
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So how many fruits and vegetables should we be eating per day? Kind of are there
Wow.
recommendations for that? What are your thoughts on that?
We are definitely not getting enough regardless of what we are having. I think the simplest teaching tool is that like half your plate, right? Trying to make sure that there's 1 to 2 cups at every single meal. We know from a kidney disease perspective that having between that 2 to 4 cups of vegetables and fruits per day can help to reduce albuminuria. Um, and then similarly from a kidney stone perspective, right? We need these kind of larger volumes, or which aren't really even larger volumes. It's what we need to just get our fiber targets. Can help from a urine perspective
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, going back to United States versus Canada, in the United States, we have a recommendation for like the dietary guidelines for Americans to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, which is great. And most people are eating nowhere near that much. But I really feel like for kidney health, we should probably be aiming for a lot more than that in an ideal world, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Think about the DASH diet, right? It's like five
Mhm.
vegetables, 5 fruits. We
A
know that the
lot.
DASH diet is super helpful from a kidney stone perspective. I often say like, okay, you have 10 in your budget of vegetables and fruits per day. How we want to divide that up might be different for everyone. But when we think about even what a serving is, right? A piece of fruit or half a cup of broccoli, those sort of things. It does add up, but sometimes it requires a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah. I would say it definitely requires it. Certainly for me. I don't know about you, but like
Yeah, I'm a
trying to
human
get
too.
to 10 is a lot, right? Like, especially when you consider I just looked this up the other day. So I think in the United States, people are eating around zero point 0.6 servings of fruit per day and like 1.9 servings of vegetables. So just
Oh,
like kind
wow.
of putting that in context, like we're nowhere near. If we can even meet the 5, like I'll be quite happy. But again, if I had a perfect world, I would love to see us closer to like that 8 to 10 range.
And I think we have to understand where we are, right? If like everyone is an individual person and starting to reflect on like, where am I actually for my servings and how can I add, 1 or 2 in there per day is better than going from, 0 to 100 sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I think that's such an important point. And we had an amazing podcast episode with Laura Kohler. If you know her, she's Behavior Change for Dietitians, I think is her handle. Um, and talked a lot about making those changes and setting sort of realistic goals and talking about how, yeah, sure, the goal is 5 a day, but if you go from 1 to 3, like that is going to do wonders for your health and kind of not setting yourself up for failure, quite frankly. And I like letting yourself celebrate those little wins.
For sure. It's super important to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So in your experience, what is the biggest barrier that people have to eating more fruits and vegetables? Like we've talked now endlessly about, how important they are, people are not eating enough, but why? Like people know fruits and vegetables are good for them, right? Like that's not rocket science in most circles. There are some people on Instagram that may be claiming differently, but generally people feel that that's healthy. So why aren't people doing it?
Think that one of the biggest barriers is whenever we doctor Google things, every list says we can't eat these things, right? We
Ugh.
can't have avocado, we can't have spinach, we can't have all of these things. And I mean, no wonder people are confused. There's a lot of can'ts. And then, you get credible evidence coming from dietitians from the literature saying, hold on, you can, and that outdated list is not accurate.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And people are getting those lists from so many different angles, right? Like from the kidney disease, we've got the high and low potassium lists. And I had a great episode with Jen Hernandez last year talking about potassium and how, like, maybe that isn't like a low potassium diet may not be the best option for a lot of
Mhm.
people. But still, like, even from very reputable sources, you see endless bad air quotes here if you can't see me like fruits and vegetables for your kidneys. And then the oxalate thing, of course, pulls in, and people think they can't eat all these foods that are, quote, high in oxalate, which is a completely bogus. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, people, it just makes it really, really hard when people aren't eating much to begin with. And then we go and put more of these unwarranted, unjustified barriers to eating those fruits and vegetables. Like, obviously, people are not eating enough, especially when we think about kidney patients.
Yeah, and I think that's really why like personalized nutrition can be helpful in understanding our blood work and having these conversations with our healthcare team. That's certainly like one aspect of it. I think the other aspect is like access to food and being able to prepare these foods. Like many of us don't know that frozen vegetables and fruits are equally as healthy as fresh.
If not more.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like those really easy strategies that can help us to incorporate them into our diet. Like we don't have to sit there chopping up vegetables every single day. Bagged salad can also be helpful. A
Hmm.
veggie tray is also really
Yeah.
good. I think that the more we can talk about vegetables and fruits with people, the easier it can be to consume them.
Yeah, right. Like if you love chopping up those vegetables and making some sort of fancy eggplant, I don't know, zucchini dish, like cool, that's like more power to you. But like it can be as simple as just adding some carrots to your salad, right? Or adding some carrots to your sandwich or whatever it is, right?
Yep. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be complicated. We often
Hmm.
think that nutrition needs to be, but it doesn't.
It's really not rocket science, right? I hate to say that, but it's kind of true. Just like eat your fruits and vegetables, and I promise you, you're going to be doing good things for your health. Okay, so what are your top 3 tips for eating more fruits and vegetables that you find yourself saying over and over and over again to your patients?
My first one is try to make sure that it is the focus of your meal.
Oh,
Often
okay.
we think that protein or carbohydrates, that's what we need to build our meal off of. But as soon as we start thinking about the vegetables and fruit aspect, we tend to make those higher in that meal.
Yeah. Can you give an
So,
example of like what that might look
yeah, breakfast, we often think of like eggs and bread.
like?
But
Hmm.
if we start thinking about, ooh, I have some like mushrooms and onion and zucchini and bell peppers in the fridge, maybe we end up making like a frittata or we make an omelet and we put that on the bread. And that also helps to keep us full for much longer at that meal. So
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
would be my number one. My number two is if you are prepping something and you know you're going to use it later on in the week, try to prep it at that time. So, for example, maybe you're going to roast some broccoli tonight for dinner, but in a couple of days you might have some stir fry. Why not wash and chop that broccoli all at the same time? Put it in some water, leave it in a container in the fridge, and then it's ready to go when you're
That
when you're.
is such a good tip. And I am the worst at that. Like, I am just so lazy. I'm like, all right, I've got to cut up this 1 cup of broccoli for this recipe. And I just throw the rest in my drawer and then it just goes bad because I'm
Yeah,
lazy and never get back to it. So, that is a great tip.
And then, you save on dishes, right? You don't have to
Right.
wash that cutting board and knife like
So
in a
true.
couple of days. It's all done and ready for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
My third tip is, keep it as simple as possible, right? So if you're having oatmeal in the morning, toss some frozen berries in it while you're cooking your oatmeal. You don't have to chop up the apple or wash the berries or things like that. Like make it simple for you so that it's easy to build these habits in. If you would normally, grab some nuts as a snack, maybe you grab a piece of fruit at the same time
Mhm.
and find an easy way to incorporate that into any time that we're eating.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It does kind of going back to what we said before, like it does not have to be hard. I do think, and tell me if you disagree, but I feel like there does, for many people, have to be a bit of an like willingness to try new things, right? And like
Mhm.
realizing that, oh, the gross, mushy frozen Brussels sprouts that I had growing up were gross because those are gross. But like maybe I try them again in a different way and they can be delicious. So I feel like for many, many people who just truly did not grow up eating fruits or vegetables at all,
Mhm.
just kind of like opening your mind a little bit and saying like, okay, like maybe I'm willing to try some new things.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny you mentioned Brussels sprouts. We had this conversation at our dinner table the other night
Yeah.
where someone was like, "No, I don't like Brussels sprouts," but they tried some fresh from the garden and it was completely a different experience. So I think it also shows you when it's like in season, right? Fruits and vegetables are going to taste different when they're kind of more
Yep.
local or in season. And for example, tomatoes, like tomatoes taste very different in the summer months than they do over the
Right.
winter.
Right.
And so your vegetables and fruits may change based on seasonality. And that's okay because there are lots of them that are going to be just as nutritious at different times of the year.
Hmm.
Uh, Trying things, I think, is important, right? We have to experience things multiple times before we can make a judgment decision on with them for food. Like just like sodium, when we're reducing sodium, we know it takes like 10 to 14 days in order for our taste buds to get used to that.
Start picking up
Sometimes
on all the other wonderful flavors in food.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to try things, even if it's just a little bit, a couple of times to really make that judgment call with
Yeah.
vegetables and fruit.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like in pediatric nutrition, which is very much on my mind lately, because I have two and a half year olds, I have twins. The word on the street or the thing that they talk about all the time with getting children to try new foods is something like 8 to 10 exposures of that food. And you talk about that all the time when we're thinking about trying to get kids to eat different things, but we really don't think about it for adults. And the same thing applies, right? Perhaps even more so because you have decades of your taste preferences and foods that are like ingrained in you, that you kind of have to overcome, you know?
For sure, definitely. And I think also that that kind of shows that different ways of exploring it in your diet, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you try some zucchini like in a pasta dish. Maybe you try it roasted. Maybe you put it in a stir fry. Sometimes it's the seasonings that we use or the method of cooking that also
Hmm.
changes how the food tastes, and you may like it better one way than the other.
Yeah, or put a delicious sauce on it because it doesn't take away the benefits. It does not take away the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, the polyphenols, like the antioxidants, all of those types of things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's all exactly like pediatric nutrition. We're all just kids at heart, I think.
Back to the basics, right? We got to start
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also there's maybe something to think about like um when you are feeding a child, many people are going to be um forgiving or like giving the kid more grace, right? Like, okay, like son, like you don't like this, like I'll try it again, right? And you're gonna work at it and try these different things because you know that it's likely good for that kid to eat a very nutritious diet, for their life, right? So I feel like there's just a lot of lessons when we think about food psychology that could be taken from how we feed our children for ourselves. Does that make sense?
I totally. And I think
Yeah.
that, we are human, right? It doesn't really matter what our age is. And so how we experience things doesn't really change.
Mhm.
Whether you're learning to ride a bike or to cook, we have to try it multiple times. We have to learn the steps. We have to learn, the food safety aspects.
Mhm.
So all of these things are kind of the same
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, philosophical thoughts today. All right. So, kind of nearing the end of our podcast, I wanted to ask you, what is your personal favorite veggie forward meal? Like that
Mm.
you eat on repeat at your in your home?
Ooh, on repeat. I think my favorite veggie forward meal, and this may be controversial from a Stone's perspective because it includes spinach in it, but we manage it with some calcium, is a palak paneer dish that we
Oh,
make.
so
Um,
good.
I just love because you're blending it all up and you can put just so many different varieties. Like I've used collard greens and spinach and a little bit of tomato and zucchini. I had some eggplant. I've put that in there and just all of the spices just cover up the uh any of the taste of the vegetables and it
Yeah.
just becomes like this very harmonious, delicious meal and very
Yeah.
comforting too. And paneer, a plant-based protein kind of a great option of getting some vegetables. You still get the fiber even when you blend things up.
Mhm.
The difference of compared to juicing, right? When we juice, we lose that fiber aspect. But yeah, I would say that right now, that's probably the meal that would be my veggie forward
Oh my
one.
gosh, I love that. I often say I do not eat 100% vegan or vegetarian, but I do often say that if I ever did, I think that eating Indian food all the time would be the way to do it because it is the one type of cuisine where I'm like, I literally don't even want the meat. Like this is so good. Like all of the different bean options and lentil options and the right, like so good. And paneer is a great source of calcium for the record. So
It
you
is,
can get that
yeah.
calcium to help balance that oxalate in the spinach and whatever other
We
vegetables.
often we eat these dishes with like a raita, right? Like a yogurt-based
Mhm.
dish, and you get your extra calcium source there too. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think it's, vegetables are so great, and there's different ways that we can incorporate them still safely from a kidney stone perspective too.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you must, I would say. We have to figure out ways to incorporate them. Um, what is a meal or two that you find yourself like that you find that patients end up kind of being their go-tos, right? Or your friends, right? Like, because many people may be like, "What are you talking about, Emily? Like, what is paneer? Like, what that's not going to be on my plate." So, what are kind of like maybe a more mainstream veggie forward dish that you find that people really hold on to and enjoy?
I think stir fries are always a really great option too, because we can choose our protein source, right? Whether we choose something plant-based with tofu or animal-based if you are incorporating those into your diet or doing a mix of them.
Mhm.
I think tofus are a great way of transitioning to plant-based diets if you are wanting to. I myself am not fully vegetarian or vegan, but also enjoy these types of meals.
Mhm.
So I love working with individuals on trying to incorporate those a bit more into their diet. But you can also clean out your fridge with whatever vegetables you have in a stir fry. So that would be
Those
one.
that little bit of broccoli that I didn't cut up for my
Yeah,
my recipe earlier in the week.
my
Yeah.
other meal would be soups. I mean, I
Mm.
just think that they're so comforting. You can freeze a little bit, so when you are in a pinch, they're really easy to use. Again, anything that you have in the fridge, get a blender or an immersion blender are like really easy kitchen appliances to make a blended soup, and then you can just toss in whatever you want. And then it's super easy to put in, a can of beans, or if you have some leftover chicken from a dinner, put that into your soup, and it makes a really balanced meal, quick and easy too.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I like to add a little bit of whole grain crusty bread to that soup too to make
I,
it
I was
extra
thinking the
filling.
same thing on the
Yeah,
side.
it's the best. Okay, awesome. I think my favorite that I'll add to the list is like a homemade Chipotle burrito bowl.
Yeah,
Like, right, who doesn't love like a Tex-Mex burrito bowl situation, right? So it have some rice and you can add peppers and onions and guacamole, which is that great source of soluble fiber, beans, lettuce, tomatoes, onions, right? So many things. And I feel like that's also a great way to kind of use up a lot of little bits of things that you might have. Mushrooms, you can put anything on there. So,
we had some for dinner last week. It was definitely a household favorite and like another thing that you can prepare. And if you need to freeze a portion of it, just don't freeze the fresh lettuce.
mhm, yeah.
It's like easy to pull out, and then you have a very balanced meal.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, any other thoughts before we close this episode that you want to share?
I just want people to understand that, healthy eating, we all know what healthy eating is. The bigger challenge is, putting these skills into practice. And dietitians are certainly here to help you with this. Both Melanie and I have a lot of great resources on our websites to talk to you about recipes and how to incorporate different vegetables and fruits. But from a kidney disease perspective, the one that we all need to be avoiding is star fruit. There aren't any vegetables we need to be avoiding from kidney disease. And then from kidney stones, we're learning so much more that there really aren't things we should be avoiding. It's just how we incorporate them into our diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Getting enough. I know that everyone's alarms are going off as they're listening to this podcast, but I said I couldn't eat avocado because there's oxalate. My doctor said I couldn't eat all these different fruits and vegetables. Literally no data to show low oxalate diet prevents stones. We got to look at your urine test and we have to get in enough calcium. That is always, always key. And then you're going to be able to get all those benefits, like Emily said, from those fruits and vegetables that are huge for stone prevention. So
yeah, for sure. Stone prevention, blood pressure control, all of these great things.
yeah,
That's
cancer
most
prevention,
yeah.
like literally everything. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily, so much for your time. It's been lovely chatting with you. If people want to connect with you after the podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me over on Instagram at Kidney Nutrition or on my website, kidneynutrition.ca.
Awesome. And do you work, I know you have a lot of resources that obviously anyone can access, but you work just with people in Canada. Is that correct?
So my one-on-one services are only available to individuals in Canada, but our group courses are available to anyone.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily. It was, again, lovely chatting with you and good to see you. And to everyone listening, thank you, as always, for joining me on the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. And I hope to see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more help with kidney stones, check out my website, www.thekidneydietitian.org. For more personalized help from me, check out my online course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. VIP enrollment includes help directly from me. I can't wait to see you there and help you prevent kidney stones. Have a great day.